JUNKO FURUTA, a life stolen. She was only 17, a young woman with dreams. JUNKO FURUTA, a name everyone remembers in Japan, became a very sad symbol of cruelty. Her story is very difficult to hear. It reminds us that bad things can happen even in ordinary lives. In 1988, JUNKO's life was taken from her, leaving a scar on Japan that hasn't healed. JUNKO's story isn't just about her sad death. It's about how the system failed to protect her. It's about how people demanded change. Most importantly, it's about remembering JUNKO as a young woman who deserved a much better life. The abduction. A normal day turns tragic. November 25, 1988. A normal day for most, but for JUNKO, it was the start of a nightmare. The day began like any other, with the usual routines and the comforting predictability of daily life. Little did anyone know that this day would mark the beginning of a harrowing ordeal that would shock the nation. Coming home from her part-time job, she was just a regular teenager. JUNKO FURUTA, a bright and cheerful 17-year-old, had dreams and aspirations like any other girl her age. She was looking forward to finishing school and embarking on the next chapter of her life. She didn't know the terrible things that were about to happen. As she walked home, her mind was likely filled with thoughts of school, friends, and the future. The quiet streets of her neighborhood, which usually felt safe, would soon become the backdrop for an unimaginable horror. 4 young men, just a little older than her, were waiting. These boys, who should have been enjoying their youth and planning their futures, had instead chosen a path of darkness. They were not strangers to trouble, and their presence on that street corner was anything but innocent. They had a bad plan, driven by a desire for power and cruelty. Their intentions were malevolent, and they were prepared to go to any lengths to fulfill their twisted desires. The leader of this group, Hiroshi Miyano, was particularly ruthless. Hiroshi Miyano, the leader, went up to JUNKO. With a deceptive smile and a friendly demeanor, he approached her, masking his true intentions behind a facade of kindness. JUNKO, unaware of the danger she was in, saw no reason to be suspicious. He tricked her, pretending to be her friend. His words were carefully chosen to gain her trust, and his actions were calculated to make her feel safe. It was a cruel manipulation, designed to lure her into a trap. Once she trusted him, they forced her into a car. The moment she realized something was wrong, it was too late. The boys overpowered her, and her pleas for help went unanswered. The car sped away, taking her further from the safety of her home and deeper into a nightmare. They took her to a house in Tokyo. This house, which appeared ordinary from the outside, would become a place of unimaginable suffering for JUNKO. It was here that her captors would reveal the full extent of their cruelty. This house became her prison, a place where her hope slowly disappeared. Over the next 44 days, JUNKO would endure horrors that are difficult to comprehend. Her spirit, once so full of life, would be tested in ways that no one should ever have to experience. The story of JUNKO FURUTA is a tragic reminder of the darkness that can exist in the world and the importance of standing against such evil. 44 days of hell. Imagine being trapped in a place where every second feels like an eternity, where every breath is a struggle, and every moment is filled with dread. This was the reality for JUNKO FURUTA, a captivity of unspeakable cruelty. Her days were filled with unimaginable pain and suffering, locked away from the world, isolated in a dark, empty room. For 44 painful days, JUNKO lived through a nightmare. Each day was marked off on a calendar, a grim reminder of her prolonged suffering. Her tear-streaked face told a story of endless torment. What happened to her was so awful, so terrible, it's hard to understand. She was left alone in a dimly lit room, hugging her knees, trying to find some semblance of comfort in an otherwise hostile environment. Beaten, starved, tortured, the 4 boys were incredibly cruel to her. Their clenched fists and the broken glass on the floor were constant reminders of their brutality. They lost their humanity with every act of violence. Each act of cruelty stripped away their humanity, leaving behind nothing but shadowy figures in a dimly lit room. They seemed to have no conscience. Their cold, emotionless eyes and the way they walked away in the dark showed a complete lack of remorse. JUNKO held on to life. Despite the overwhelming odds, she clung to life, her grip on a piece of fabric as tight as her will to survive. Even though she was hurt and broken, she didn't give up. She lay on the floor, trying to get up, her pained eyes reflecting her unbroken spirit. She hoped for a miracle, a way to escape. The small window with light streaming through was her only glimpse of hope, a reminder that there was a world outside her prison. but her captors didn't care about her pain. They loomed over her, indifferent to her suffering, as she reached out in vain for mercy. They continued to hurt her. Their hands held weapons and she cowered in fear, knowing that more pain was coming. JUNKO's ordeal shows us just how bad people can be. The stormy sky and shattered glass on the ground symbolize the chaos and destruction that human cruelty can bring. The discovery, a gruesome find, and a nation in shock. January 4, 1989. The nightmare finally ended, but not in the way JUNKO deserved. Her body, hidden in concrete, was found in a large drum. The news of her death shocked everyone in Japan. The brutality of the crime, how inhuman it was, left the nation in disbelief. People were horrified. How could this happen? How could 4 young men do such terrible things? Finding JUNKO's body showed everyone that bad things can happen anywhere. The trial of JUNKO's killers was big news. Everyone in Japan was watching, wanting justice for JUNKO, but what happened in court made people angry and shocked. The perpetrators, protected by laws for young people, got sentences that many thought were too light. People were very upset. How could the system fail so badly? The lenient sentences, because of loopholes in the law, started a national debate. The JUNKO FURUTA case showed everyone that Japan's juvenile justice system needed to change. Public outrage, a wave of anger, and calls for reform. Everyone was angry about the JUNKO FURUTA case. Students, parents, activists, people from all walks of life demanded justice and change. They wanted harsher punishments for young offenders. They said the laws were old and not strong enough for such terrible crimes. The case created a big change in society. It made Japan look at its legal system, its values, and how it protects its people. The calls for justice for JUNKO FURUTA were heard all over Japan, starting a movement for change that continues today. The perpetrators, troubled pasts, uncertain futures. The 4 young men who hurt JUNKO became symbols of a lost generation. Their pasts, filled with violence, showed a society struggling with its young people. What they did, though unforgivable, made people ask questions about the role of family, school, and community. While they were in prison, people debated. Were they products of a bad system, or just bad people? Could they ever be better? The JUNKO FURUTA case made Japan think about juvenile delinquency and rehabilitation. JUNKO's legacy, a catalyst for change. JUNKO FURUTA's name now means fighting for justice and change. Her tragic death started a movement that is still pushing for change in Japan's juvenile justice system. Her story reminds us of the terrible cost of violence and the need to protect innocent people. JUNKO's legacy is more than just legal reform. Her case started a national conversation about bullying, violence against women, and the importance of empathy and respect. Even though her story is sad, it has inspired many people to work towards a safer and more just world. Reflections, remembering JUNKO, demanding justice. More than 30 years have passed since JUNKO FURUTA's death, but her story is still important. JUNKO was a bright young girl with dreams and aspirations, just like any other teenager. Her life was tragically cut short, but her memory lives on in the hearts of many. Her story is a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the depths of human cruelty, yet it also serves as a beacon of hope, urging us to strive for a better world. Her case reminds us that life is precious, that people can be cruel, and that hope is powerful. JUNKO's story is not just a tale of tragedy, but also one of resilience and the human spirit's capacity to endure. It teaches us the importance of standing up against injustice and the need to support one another in times of darkness. The solidarity shown by people around the world in remembering JUNKO is a testament to the enduring power of hope and unity. While we are sad about her death, we must honor her by continuing to fight for justice in a world where such terrible things never happen again. This means advocating for stronger laws to protect the vulnerable, educating our communities about the signs of abuse, and fostering a culture of empathy and respect. By doing so, we not only honor JUNKO's memory, but also work towards preventing future tragedies. Getting justice for JUNKO FURUTA isn't just about punishing those responsible, but about creating a society that values and protects everyone. It's about ensuring that every individual, regardless of their background, can live in a world free from fear and violence. This involves community efforts, policy changes, and a collective commitment to safeguarding human rights. We must work together to build a society where everyone feels safe and valued. It's about learning from the past and working towards a future where every young person can live without violence and fear. Education plays a crucial role in this endeavor. By teaching our children about the importance of kindness, respect, and justice, we lay the foundation for a more compassionate and just society. We must also remember the lessons from past social movements and continue to push for progress in our own time. Let JUNKO's story inspire us to build a better world. A world where every life is valued, where justice prevails, and where hope shines brightly even in the darkest of times. By coming together and taking action, we can create a future where such tragedies are a thing of the past. Let us honor JUNKO by making a difference, one step at a time, and ensuring that her legacy lives on through our efforts to create a safer, more just world for all.